Afternoon, everyone. This is your instructor. I have Judy Seville here today to talk with you about her experiences in social work. So, Judy, share with my class what led you to pursuing a career in the field of social work.
Okay, so that's a big question. And what I can honestly say is that I sort of knew from a very early age that in some form or another, helping others was an important part of who I am. I grew up in a family where service to others was very important. So I suppose in some ways it's not surprising that I ended up in social work. I got my undergraduate degree in social work, and then I got my master's degree in social work, having spent 5 years between undergrad and going back to graduate school. And during those 5 years, I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to work in the field of social work. Although I had done an internship as an undergrad, I had an opportunity to work with women who were leaving violent homes. I had a chance to work with folks who had a variety of mental health as well as developmental disabilities. I worked in a group home. I worked in a respite care facility. So by the time I went back and got my MSW, I really did have a good idea of what social work was about and kind of where my skills were. And so I got my MSW and shortly thereafter moved to Central Illinois. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. And I moved to Illinois. And believe it or not, 30 some years ago, there were not very many people in this community who had MSWs. Mm. So I was surprisingly a very, in some ways, a unique person because I had experience and a master's degree. It was long before the School of Social Work had an MSW program. And I ended up working as the director of at the time it was the sexual assault and domestic violence program. It was a shelter program that was sponsored through the YWCA. And actually it was through that work as the director of the domestic violence program that I met folks through the School of Social Work at ISU, and I was a field supervisor for a BSW student. And several folks who taught in the School of Social Work said, you should apply for a teaching position at ISU. And so I did, and I got the position. The thing that I love most about social work, though, is even though I've been a teacher and I've taught here for 30 years, I've always kept my hand in the field. So although I was teaching, I worked at the Community Mental Health Center part-time. I was teaching, but I worked at the Student Counseling Service part-time. I've always been involved in volunteer work, including more recently as a Red Cross volunteer. I know your instructor has asked me to talk briefly about my work or my volunteer work through the Red Cross, and really it's something I'm very proud of. I went through training shortly after the attack on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, 2001, 9/11. And at that time there was of course a mass effort to get people to the sites and to get the Red Cross there. And what came out of that was a realization that oftentimes first responders, those folks that were going into the Twin Towers or into the Pentagon, that those first responders were traumatized by that experience. And it wasn't just the first responders, but then of course all of the people who had witnessed the attacks, who had lost loved ones. And so it really became more of a movement to work as a Red Cross volunteer, going into places where not just a disaster occurred, but to be able to provide supportive mental health services. That's a relatively new concept. So I went through the volunteer training shortly after 9/11, and then got involved in doing this kind of mental health support work at natural disasters. So I've responded to natural disasters in flooding, tornadoes, fires. I've been also, through my work with the Red Cross, involved with providing services to veterans. The Red Cross offers a program called Service to Armed Forces, and so I've been involved in training and teaching classes on helping service members prepare for deployment, as well as when service members are coming back from serving in a war zone, helping them, helping their families come up with ways to manage the reunification, to manage how to deal with anger, depression. I've been trained to know all of the resources and referrals through the Veterans Administration, so that if a situation occurs with a vet who's experiencing post-traumatic stress, that I don't necessarily do that work, but I know how to get that person to the services that he or she may need. So I really, really love my work as a volunteer through the Red Cross. I also do mediation. I've been trained to do family dispute mediation. I do small claims court mediation, and also child protection mediation, and again as a volunteer. And I also volunteer at the Community Cancer Center. One day a week I go and I meet with folks who are receiving chemo, and they're sitting in their chairs, and many of them are lonely, isolated, and so I see myself as a support, and if things come up that I know would require the services of a social worker, there is a person there who's employed as a social worker, and then of course I make those referrals. So I'm retired now, and I love being retired, but I also get, again, to work in this field that I love as a volunteer.
So Judy, if there was one pearl of wisdom that you would share with students that are interested in pursuing a career in social work, what would that pearl of wisdom be?
My pearl of wisdom. I have a lot of pearls of wisdom. I think probably the most important thing is that you have to love this work, and you have to enter into this commitment, this profession, with an openness for truly non-judgmental approach to look at every client as a partner in this, and you have to love it. You just have to love what you do, because if you don't, clients pick up on this quickly, and to everything you do, to have an open heart and an open mind.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come talk with our class. As you all can see, she has on her Red Cross
My
Disaster
Red Cross
Relief vest that she wears anytime she's deployed. So I hope that you all have a better understanding of all the many things that social workers can do. Take care. Until next time. Bye.